Africa has been the provider. If you look at Europe, Europe cannot survive without Africa. One situation that people don't realize, post-World War, when the US came up with the Marshall Plan, what they don't tell you is that the contribution through exploitation of African minerals was actually the biggest funder of the European Recovery Plan, ERP, aka the Marshall Plan. US contributed $13 billion, which is now present day $175 billion, which, by the way, the American taxpayer must be paid back. Nobody's asking for that money back. But what they don't tell you is that Africa, through exploitation of its resources by the Europeans, was actually a much, much bigger contribution to the European recovery post-World War II. Nobody talks about that. Why does such a continent that did so much to help Europe recover continue to be so poor? Let's be realistic here. Let's not talk about peanuts. Africa does not need the aid. What we need is for those who are exploiting Africa to stop. Africa has everything it needs. If Africa could have contributed as much as it did to the recovery of Europe post-World War II, why wasn't Africa equally developed?
This is something nobody really talks about, but a lot of the biggest designs have been stolen from African tribes. Here are some of the examples. The famous Versace Greco print was stolen from the Funban tribes in Cameroon, and even the LV monogram with the famous sign inside was stolen from the Kwele tribe. And in the LV's Man collection in 2012, you can find the Masai Shuka, which is a traditional African blanket based in colorful shades of red and blue. This one is often used in the Maasai tribes of Kenya and Tanzania. Do you know more designs that got stolen? And more importantly, should these tribes be compensated with the profits that the brands are getting?
It happens every single day. People steal our style, they steal our culture, they steal our words, they steal how we dress, how we feel, what we drink, what we eat, everything. And we can't allow that to be a point where it's like, oh man, we ain't getting the credit. It's almost like you got to be like, oh shit, we got to do it even harder.
Exactly.
Like everything that we do, we move the needle. That's right. And we got to continue to do that.
People love the culture from black people, and then when they see black people go through the worst injustice ever, they quiet.
Exactly.
And it's like, we need that love. We need that. Give us that credit by standing with us so we can stand together, all nationalities. But you see us going through it, say something, because we're here. We're giving the world our sauce and all of that. And it's like, if you want to take that sauce or whatever you want to call that thing we give out to the world, then be there with us. Speak up against the injustice.
That's why other cultures love black women. They ain't gonna bring you home. That's what that crossing the line. They ain't finna bring you home to their family.
You fine.
But you a fun. That's why all these girls going to Dubai and all this crap. Now that's one thing comes from, not one thing, but it makes everybody want to be like us. Cause we're so exploited. Oh, they this, they that. But they love this lifestyle. You look at every rap. Trap rap is in every other culture.
Oh yeah.
I seen Chinese trap rap, Japanese trap rap, German. I done seen every different, and I've never seen other cultures where their shit, what we doing, what they doing, right? We're not stealing from nobody. Everybody's stealing from us.
And as I was walking out, two African-born economists come to me and said, but Ambassador, we can't keep talking about the Berlin Conference. It's a thing of the past. Two African economists. I was shocked. I said, I just finished 2 hours. I answered every question, and you missed everything. I said, my sons, as long as we have a country called Togo, a country called Eswatini, a country called Malawi, Berlin Conference is alive and well. It's a policy that they spent 3 months strategizing on how to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. I'm going to repeat that. 3 months of strategizing, 4 months of strategizing and making sure that they put together a policy to make sure Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. And that policy is still in place today. That is why we still have a country called Malawi, a country that can never survive on its own. That is why we are unable to see that obvious fact, to say we cannot survive as these little-bitty African countries. That is why it is difficult for us to say, why can't we just say Africa for the Africans, no passports? It's a simple decision.
Top 5 music genres that were stolen from black culture. Number 5 is country music. Yes, the music genre we most associate with being white nowadays was originated by black people. Of course, the industry has been completely dominated by white artists, but there was a time pre the 1920s it was dominated by African Americans. Number 4 is jazz. Okay, jazz started in New Orleans. It started as sort of a anti-racist movement among black people in that time. Of course, there have been amazing white jazz artists of our time, and it's important to just acknowledge where these things come from and continue to make great music, all people. Number 3 is rock and roll. This is an obvious one. We hear Elvis Presley constantly, referenced for stealing black music. This is a touchy subject because Elvis did bring a lot of black music to our consciousness, and a lot of these songs would have been lost if it weren't for him. But unfortunately, he did also steal the way these songs were sung. He didn't really put his own original spin on it, and I think that that's the big problem. Number 2 is EDM. Now, yes, electronic dance music used to be disco, and, this especially started in the nightclubs in the queer scene, and the dance balls, the drag balls, all used electronic dance music. Of course, today it's bastardized into an image of like a white dude with headphones just bopping his head on a disco pad. If you like this list and want more about other nonsense, follow me. Leave me a comment with your thoughts on this subject. I think everybody should be allowed to make music, but we always need to acknowledge where it came from. Finally, also follow my fiancée Samantha. Finally, at number 1, and fortunately, I think most of us will accredit it to African Americans, is rap.
These people don't connect to our gods direct. They don't finally decode. These are the wonder because I see plenty Oyibo Babalawo these days. The amount of Oyibo with the Babalawo for America, for Brazil, for Cuba, the amount of white people that are now officially Babalawo priests, when we say that they one cipher, one sound, one sashon go to, they are Yoruba the offer where they pa offer one ton pass it by along. Even my friend Leko King Konko now one offer yelenu. Go for America, go southern states, all these Atlanta, Mississippi, as the race is rich. North Babalawo, bro. White. They don't decode them. All those people they fight them before we go us. But they don't kill all our priests. Because all of our priests were also warriors. In African tradition, there's no priest that was not a warrior. Many kidnapped away, many killed. Now these people are talking directly to the weather. All those things we think say with the craze when we talk. Say people they follow what I talk, they follow this one, they control this one, they control that one. We say that madness. Nah, if I say don't they happen no. It be like say it don't they happen, bro.
I think when we demand what was stolen from Africa, we call them artifacts. Sure, some were artifacts, but not all of it were artifacts. A lot of what the white people stole from us is our spiritual heritage that they use now to govern us. They wanted the golden stool so desperately they were prepared to go to war for it because they knew the power of the golden stool. So I think for the next 3 days, as we continue to explain and define what reparations are for us, we should remember that when we come to material reparations, which are the physical things that were taken from our continent, we should remember that our national altars, as we sit here, still lie in Europe, except for Eswatini, for they never captured their national altars. That's why they're the only country amongst us which still keeps the Queen Mother.
I'm exposing the luxury brands who have stolen from African tribes and given them no credit at all. The Louis Vuitton monogram was made in 1896, but parts of it was actually stolen from a Kwili tribal mask. The Louis Vuitton damier Bean was stolen from the Cuba chief's formal attire from the Cuba Kingdom in Congo, Africa. The Versace Greca print was also stolen from the Cuba tribe and the Fumban tribe in Cameroon. The Louis Vuitton men's collection in 2012 was inspired by the Masai Shuka, a traditional African blanket cast in colourful shades of red and blue. The design stolen from the Masai tribe of Kenya and Tanzania. Louis Vuitton also created in 2014 the tribal mask chain wallet. Is it just inspiration or is it cultural appropriation, and should these tribes be compensated with the profits that these brands are getting?
So you see, what the colonizer did was they picked a few people and made them elitist in our society. And the British, because they were so selfish when it came to the black man, they were not selfish with each other. The elitist who was being groomed, who was under them, only saw them serve themselves. So for instance, if they built roads, the roads were leading to their bungalows. If they built hospitals, it was for their children. Like, everything was privilege, which brought about oppression. So the people that they picked, the elitists that they picked, that they made a few handful of them go to, like, the Oxford universities and speak the Queen's English and hang with them and go to their balls and their parties. Those black people and those elitists started to have this mindset where they hated themselves and always wanted to feel superior over their brother.
We have been so brainwashed to the point that even the obvious lies, we hear them, we know their lies, but we can't get ourselves to unbelieve. And we kneel down in front of the white angels, in front of white Jesus, who we know very well Jesus Christ was not white. We were systematically brainwashed. We were systematically put in the state of mind that we are in. The instructions that the missionaries were given in terms of how to deal with the African. Remember, when they came to Africa, they found very resistant people, very well-established religious, educational systems, people who were so strong that they didn't know how they could conquer Africa unless they addressed the issues of Africa from the core. So they set out a process of letting us believe that everything to do with Black and African was bad, and everything to do with white was better. White and European was better. We have to understand that the missionaries were given instructions on how to instruct us and how to control our minds. They were told to teach us how to read, but not to reason. It was a systematic process, specific instructions on how to handle a Black person in order to get them where they wanted us to be. They used the same process with the slaves on the plantations, where they began this process of divide and conquer, lighter-skinned people versus darker-skinned people, the straighter your nose versus the flatter your nose, thin lips versus thick lips. It was a process that we have been put through. We have been trained to self-hate. I use the example of religion. And I use an example of myself growing up in Zimbabwe. The British did not come to Zimbabwe until 1896. Prior to their coming, we did not know of white color or black color. We were Africans. We were Africans. But the missionaries came in and they told us about Christianity. They told us about Jesus Christ. They told us about the angels who were white and the devil who was Black. Then they turn around and say, the angels are desirable. They do the wonderful things. We must aspire to be like them. And they said, oh, by the way, we may not look like this white sheet of paper. Besides, remember, they introduced the color white and the color black. We didn't have that. So we know how black looks like. We know how white looks like. But they turn around and say, the angels are white and we are white too. Never mind how we look. We may not look like this piece of paper, but believe we are white. And we represent the angels. And you're Black. You may not look like this cover of my phone, which is black, but you represent the devil. The devil is black. The devil is evil. We all must run away from the devil. You don't want to represent the devil. Oh, by the way, You may not look like this black piece of paper, but you're black too. Then now let's go to church. And we kneel down in front of the white angels, in front of white Jesus, who we know very well Jesus Christ was not white. Even their own Bible tells us he had crimson skin. We know for a fact that when Mary and Joseph were running away from King Herod, they were told to go to Egypt. Why? Because in Egypt, Jesus Christ would blend with those who looked more like him. If he was white, they would have told them to run to Europe. So we have all these obvious lies that we have been told. So for centuries, we have knelt and worshipped white Jesus and white angels and denied that which they told us represented us. So they systematically put us through a process of self-hate. It is not by surprise that we hate ourselves. We don't like each other. We don't trust each other. Understand that this has been a systematic process of criminalizing blackness, of teaching us and training us to hate everything that looks like us, and educating that the more we look closer to what white people do, the better off we are. So we spend the rest of our lives and the lives of our children and the lives of generations to come, if we do not do something about it, hating ourselves, teaching our children to hate ourselves. We are a sick people. Let's face it. We need healing. We have been so brainwashed to hate ourselves. I use the example of religion, and I use an example of myself growing up in Zimbabwe. The British did not come to Zimbabwe until 1896. Prior to their coming, we did not know of white color or black color. We were Africans. We were Africans. But the missionaries came in and they told us about Christianity. They told us about Jesus Christ. They told us about the angels who were white and the devil who was black. Then they turn around and say, the angels are desirable. They do the wonderful things. We must aspire to be like them. And they said, oh, by the way, we may not look like this white sheet of paper. Besides, remember, they introduced the color white and the color black. We didn't have that. So we know how black looks like. We know how white looks like. But they turn around and say, the angels are white and we are white too. Never mind how we look. We may not look like this piece of paper, but believe we are white. And we represent the angels. And you're black. You may not look like this cover of my phone, which is black. But you represent the devil. The devil is black. The devil is evil. We all must run away from the devil. You don't want to represent the devil. Oh, by the way, you may not look like this black piece of paper, but you're black too. Then now let's go to church. And we kneel down in front of the white angels, in front of white Jesus, who we know very well Jesus Christ was not white. Even their own Bible tells us he had crimson skin. We know for a fact that when Mary and Joseph were running away from King Herod, they were told to go to Egypt. Why? Because in Egypt, Jesus Christ would blend with those who looked more like him. If he was white, they would have told them to run to Europe. So we have all these obvious lies that we have been told. So for centuries, we have knelt and worshipped white Jesus and white angels and denied that which they told us represented us.